The Galactic Empire had dominated the stars for centuries. Their ships, sleek and powerful, sailed through the vast emptiness of space, claiming world after world, expanding their empire without hesitation. They were the rulers of the galaxy, with countless planets under their control, each serving their will. The Empire's technology was far beyond anything that could be imagined, and their soldiers were elite warriors, trained to conquer with ruthless efficiency. Yet there was one planet they had never heard of, one that was not on any star map: Earth. To the Empire, Earth was just another unimportant speck of rock orbiting a small sun. They had no reason to believe it was anything special. The planet was home to a primitive species, humans, who were still in their infancy when it came to space travel. In the eyes of the Empire, humanity was no different from the thousands of weak species they had already subdued. But the Empire's fleet, led by Admiral Morthak, was about to make a mistake. The invasion of Earth began like any other. A massive fleet of warships, carrying millions of soldiers and all the tools of destruction, entered Earth's orbit. The ships were enormous, each one more than capable of reducing cities to ash with a single blast. The Empire was confident that the humans would cower in fear, offering little resistance as they had done on countless other worlds. Yet, as the first ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, something strange began to happen. Across the globe, humans noticed the ships in the sky, but instead of retreating or running, something inside them stirred. They felt a strange, new force rising within them, an energy they didn't even know they had. It was the spark of defiance. In Earth's major cities, military leaders scrambled to respond. They had never faced an enemy like this, but they were not completely unprepared. Earth had never been a world of warriors or conquerors, but it was a planet filled with inventors, thinkers, and problem solvers. The human race had spent centuries advancing their technology in ways no one had expected, building a network of satellites and defense systems capable of making small, focused strikes. As the Empire's fleet descended toward Earth, humanity's leaders knew they had one chance to act. Using every available resource, they launched a cryptic message into space, directly aimed at the Empire's fleet. "We warned you to run," the message said. Admiral Morthak, upon receiving the message, laughed. He was certain it was nothing more than a desperate attempt from a primitive species, perhaps a final plea for mercy. The idea that humans, simple, untested humans, could pose any real threat to the Empire was laughable. Morthak dismissed the message, ordering his fleet to proceed with the invasion. But as the first wave of Imperial ships landed, Earth's forces struck. They were not as advanced as the Empire's warriors, but they had something the Empire had never accounted for: sheer unpredictability. Humans fought with a tenacity that couldn't be measured by technology alone. They used their surroundings, cities, mountains, forests, as natural weapons against the Empire's machines. The first surprise came when a small human missile strike hit one of the Empire's leading warships. It wasn't a weapon of extraordinary power or sophistication, but the missile was well aimed and precisely timed, catching the Empire off guard. The ship's shield systems were not designed to withstand such an attack. The explosion sent shockwaves through the Empire's command chain, and their commanders were forced to reconsider their assumptions. For the first time in the Empire's history, they found themselves facing a species that didn't fall apart in the face of overwhelming force. Instead, they fought back with every tool at their disposal. Earth's military, though outgunned and outmatched, had one thing that the Empire had underestimated: unity. Every nation, every city, every person, regardless of their background, came together in defense of their home. Across the world, humans rose to the challenge. Scientists, engineers, and ordinary people created new weapons, hacked into enemy communications, and sabotaged Imperial systems. The Earth's forces began to push back, slowly at first, but with growing confidence. The Empire's initial arrogance started to fade as reports of human resilience poured in. Meanwhile, the warning that the Empire had ignored continued to echo across the stars. We warned you to run." Admiral Morthak now faced a dilemma. He had underestimated the humans. He had thought them weak, fragile beings who could be easily crushed. But Earth had proven him wrong. This small, seemingly insignificant world had started to fight back in ways no one had ever imagined. The Empire's commanders began to realize that this wasn't going to be the easy conquest they had expected. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had struck back. But they had also sent a clear message to the invaders. Earth was not going to be conquered without a fight. And the message was more than just a warning. It was a promise. The Galactic Empire had never expected anything like this. Their massive fleet, once thought invincible, now found itself struggling to maintain control over a small, unimportant planet. Earth was supposed to be an easy target, a world that would bend before the might of the Empire's advanced technology. Instead, humanity was proving to be a formidable opponent, one that the Empire had failed to understand. As the days passed, the resistance on Earth grew stronger. At first, it was just small, unexpected strikes, humans using outdated weapons to disrupt the Empire's operations. But soon, these strikes began to take a more coordinated form. Across the world, leaders in every nation began to put aside old differences and unite against the common enemy. The war, which had started with confusion and disbelief, now had a single goal: to protect their home and push back the invaders. In underground bunkers, military strategists from every corner of the Earth worked together, pooling their knowledge and resources. They were not as advanced as the Empire, but they had something the Empire lacked: creativity. The humans quickly realized that their strength did not lie in sheer numbers or powerful weapons, but in their ability to adapt and improvise. On the surface, the cities of Earth had become battlegrounds. Buildings that once symbolized the progress of humankind were now used as shields and launching points for counterattacks. The streets were filled with civilians working together, setting up traps and defenses, all with the goal of slowing down the Empire's progress. It was clear that Earth's forces were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. In the capital cities, military leaders held urgent meetings, trying to predict the Empire's next move. While they had no idea how long they could keep up the fight, they were determined to make it as difficult as possible for the invaders. One thing was clear: Earth was not going to give up without a fierce struggle. As the war dragged on, the Empire's commanders began to grow frustrated. Their armies were large and well-equipped, but they were being outsmarted by a planet they had once thought of as weak and insignificant. Each time they thought they had the upper hand, the humans would find a way to strike back. And as the days turned into weeks, the Empire's forces began to question their commander's underestimation of Earth's potential. Back on Earth, people who had never seen a battlefield before were stepping up. Teachers, farmers, doctors, and engineers, all were learning how to fight, how to adapt, and how to defend their planet. They weren't soldiers, but they fought with the heart and soul of those who had no other choice. And with every passing day, the humans grew more skilled, more determined. They were learning from their mistakes, using their greatest weapon, their ability to think. Meanwhile, Earth's scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies, modifying existing tools and turning them into effective weapons. Some of these inventions were simple, others more complex, but they were all aimed at one thing: taking the fight to the Empire. Humans didn't have the advanced weapons the Empire possessed, but they had something better: the power to innovate. The most significant breakthrough came when a group of human engineers successfully reverse-engineered one of the Empire's damaged warships. Using what they had learned from the wreckage, they created a device capable of temporarily disabling the Empire's advanced shields. This was a game-changer. With this newfound knowledge, Earth's forces launched a series of calculated strikes against key targets, including supply depots and communication hubs, making it more difficult for the Empire to coordinate their attacks. The Empire's fleet had never encountered anything like this before. They had expected humans to be overwhelmed by their superior firepower, but instead they were dealing with a force that refused to back down. The human response was nothing like the Empire had seen on any other world. Every time they thought they were winning, the humans found a new way to fight back, to outthink them. It wasn't just a war, it was a battle of wits, and humanity was quickly proving that they were capable of so much more than the Empire had ever imagined. And then, the message came again. This time, it was broadcasted across the galaxy, direct and unambiguous. "We warned you to run." Admiral Morthek, now facing a new level of resistance, couldn't ignore it any longer. He had laughed off the warning at first, but now, with every new strike, with every new bit of information coming from his fleet, the truth was becoming undeniable. Humanity was not going to simply roll over. They had become something far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. The Empire's leaders back on the capital planet began to worry. They had underestimated Earth and its people. The Empire's resources were vast, but the humans had something the Empire lacked: determination. It was a force the Empire couldn't measure with any weapon, a strength that came from deep within the hearts of every person on Earth. As the battle continued, one thing was clear: the Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity. They had thought of Earth as an easy conquest, a world that would bow to their might. But now, they were facing a people who refused to back down, and that, above all else, made them dangerous. Admiral Morthek paced nervously on the bridge of his flagship. The reports from his officers had started to sound more and more concerning. Earth's resistance was not just holding on, it was growing stronger. Every day, new strategies, new attacks, and new inventions were emerging from the planet. The once confident Empire, which had expected an easy victory, now found itself in a position it had never expected. For the first time in its long history, it was struggling against a world it had underestimated. The Empire's fleet had become a slow-moving behemoth, struggling to adapt to the unpredictable tactics the humans were using. What made it even worse was that Earth's forces were not fighting with advanced weapons or overwhelming numbers. They were fighting with determination and creativity. Morthek had to admit it. The humans had surprised him. One of the key moments that turned the tide came when a small human group managed to infiltrate one of the Empire's supply stations in the asteroid belt. Using their new understanding of the Empire's technology, they sabotaged the station's systems. The Empire had thought their supply lines were secure, but now entire fleets found themselves stranded in space without the fuel and supplies they needed. This wasn't just a minor setback. It was a major blow to the Empire's war effort. The human tactics continued to evolve. It wasn't just about physical attacks anymore. Earth's scientists had discovered a way to hack into the Empire's communications and disrupt their coordination. With every new strike, the humans became more efficient, more skilled. The Empire's advanced ships, once thought invincible, were starting to show cracks in their armor. It wasn't the humans' weapons that were breaking through. Their ingenuity was doing the real damage. Across the world, people were starting to notice that something extraordinary was happening. Ordinary citizens, who had never picked up a weapon in their lives, were now working alongside soldiers and scientists to fight back. They weren't just fighting to protect their homes, they were fighting for their survival. The idea that a small, isolated planet could stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire was beginning to take root, and the more humanity fought, the more their unity grew. The battle spread beyond Earth's atmosphere. As Earth's forces gained confidence, they began to engage the Empire in space. With the help of the technology they had reverse-engineered from the damaged warship, they began to launch attacks on the Empire's fleet. The humans didn't have the firepower the Empire possessed, but they had something just as powerful: the ability to think outside the box. One of the most daring attacks came when a small human squadron managed to board an Imperial destroyer. Using nothing but basic tools and their knowledge of the ship's systems, they bypassed the security measures and took control of key areas. The Empire never expected it. How could a group of untrained humans outmaneuver their elite soldiers? But that's exactly what happened. The Empire's destroyer, a ship that had once been a symbol of power, was now in human hands. Back on Earth, The news of the human victory spread like wildfire. People in every corner of the globe cheered. The idea that humans could win a battle against such a powerful foe was something they had never imagined possible. But now, it was happening. And the Empire was starting to feel the pressure. Admiral Morthek, despite his growing concerns, refused to acknowledge that his fleet might be losing. He was determined to crush the resistance once and for all. He ordered the deployment of more troops, more weapons, and more ships. The Empire had resources, many resources, but even they had their limits. The more they threw at Earth, the more human forces adapted. In one particular battle, the Empire tried to make a show of force. They launched an all-out attack on a major human defense base, hoping to destroy it in a single strike. But the humans, once again, had other plans. They had set traps, using the very terrain of their world to their advantage. The Empire's forces were lured into a network of tunnels and narrow spaces, where their large ships couldn't maneuver. The humans, using smaller and more agile vehicles, attacked from unexpected angles, using their knowledge of the environment to wear down the Empire's superior technology. The Empire's fleet, though powerful, was beginning to break apart under the constant pressure. Their ships were damaged. Their commanders were growing increasingly frustrated. And the humans, despite their lack of resources, were proving to be a formidable force. In the command centers across Earth, military leaders watched the battles unfold. They had come a long way since the first alien ships had arrived. They were no longer the underdogs. They were no longer the people who had to hide in fear. The humans had fought back, and they were starting to win. The Empire was beginning to understand what the humans had known all along. They were not to be underestimated. The message that had been sent at the beginning of the war, "We warned you to run," was beginning to ring true. Earth's forces were no longer fighting just to survive. They were fighting to win, and they were winning. As Admiral Morthek looked out from his flagship, he realized that the war was not going to end the way he had planned. The humans had taken him by surprise, and now they were pushing him to the edge. He had underestimated them once, but now he could see the truth. Earth was not going to fall without a fight. And with every new strike, with every new victory, humanity proved that they were not just a small, insignificant planet. They were a force to be reckoned with. The battle between Earth and the Galactic Empire had reached a turning point. What started as a series of unexpected skirmishes had now turned into a full-scale war. Humanity, once thought to be powerless in the face of the Empire's overwhelming force, had proven to be anything but weak. Earth's forces, though still outnumbered, had made the impossible possible. They had pushed back the invaders time and time again, using every bit of ingenuity and determination at their disposal. In the command centers across the globe, military leaders were working together like never before. The once divided nations of Earth had now united under one banner, with a singular goal: to defend their world and push the Empire out of their skies. It wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a fight for their future, and the humans were determined to win. One of the key moments in the war came when humanity's scientists unveiled a new piece of technology, a powerful energy shield that could protect Earth's cities from the Empire's devastating attacks. This shield was far from perfect, but it was enough to make a significant difference. For the first time since the war began, Earth's cities could breathe a little easier, knowing that they had some form of defense against the Empire's most powerful weapons. The shield's success was a huge morale booster for Earth's forces. It gave them a fighting chance. Now they could strike back at the Empire with more confidence. The humans had learned how to use their environment to their advantage, and now they had the protection to do it more effectively. On the front lines, human soldiers continued to adapt. They were learning from their mistakes, improving their tactics, and using the knowledge they had gained from the Empire's technology. They were no longer just reacting to the invaders. They were anticipating their moves and countering them with precision. The humans had become an unpredictable force, and the Empire had no idea how to deal with it. But it wasn't just the soldiers who were contributing to the war effort. Ordinary people, who had never been trained for battle, were stepping up in ways that no one had expected. In every city, civilians were helping to build fortifications, repair equipment, and provide supplies to the soldiers. It was a true display of unity, a global effort to protect their home. No one was sitting idly by. Everyone had a role to play. The Empire, meanwhile, was starting to feel the pressure. Their resources were stretched thin, and their forces were being worn down by the constant attacks. Despite their advanced technology, they were being outmaneuvered at every turn. The once confident Empire was now facing a crisis. Admiral Morthak, who had once thought the war would be over in days, was starting to realize that Earth was not going to be an easy victory. But the Empire wasn't ready to give up just yet. They still had one weapon left that they had not yet used: the superweapon. It was a weapon so powerful that it could obliterate an entire planet with a single strike. The Empire had kept it hidden in the deepest parts of their fleet, saving it for a situation just like this, one where they needed to end the war quickly and decisively. Admiral Morthak knew that using the superweapon would be a last resort, but the pressure was mounting. The Empire had already lost too many ships, and Earth's forces were becoming more organized and skilled with every passing day. He knew that if they didn't act soon, they would lose the war. But the consequences of using the superweapon were massive. Destroying Earth would mean the end of any hope of gaining the planet's resources and strategic value. It would be a victory, but a hollow one. Meanwhile, the humans were preparing for the Empire's next move. They knew that the Empire wouldn't stop until they were defeated, and they couldn't afford to be caught off guard. The war had brought out the best in humanity: creativity, teamwork, and perseverance. But the humans were also aware that the next phase of the battle would be the most difficult yet. The Empire had shown them that they were capable of unimaginable destruction. In a quiet corner of the world, a small group of Earth's top scientists were working on a plan. They had discovered something in the Empire's technology, a weakness in the superweapon's design. If they could exploit that weakness, they might be able to stop the weapon before it could be used. But the plan was risky. It required infiltrating the heart of the Empire's fleet, deep within their defenses. It was a mission that no one had ever attempted before. The humans knew that they had to act quickly. If the Empire launched the superweapon, the consequences would be dire. But if they could stop it, the Empire's power would be shattered, and Earth would have a real chance of winning the war. As the days passed, the pressure continued to mount. The Empire was preparing for its final move, and Earth's forces were racing against time to stop them. The battle for the future of Earth had never been so uncertain. But one thing was clear: humanity had come a long way since the first invasion. They had proven that they could stand up to the might of the Galactic Empire. And now, they were preparing to take the fight to the heart of the enemy. The stakes had never been higher. Earth's forces were now in a race against time. The Empire's superweapon, a destructive force capable of obliterating entire planets, was their final card. If it was launched, Earth would be lost forever. But humanity, refusing to give up, had devised a plan, an audacious plan that could end the war once and for all. The scientists who had discovered the flaw in the superweapon's design were now working alongside military strategists, putting together the final details. They had to infiltrate the Empire's fleet, get to the heart of their forces, and disable the superweapon before it could be used. It was a dangerous mission, one that could cost many lives, but the humans knew they had no choice. They could not allow the Empire to destroy their world. In the underground bunkers, generals and leaders from every nation of Earth met in secret. They had to make the difficult decision: who would risk their lives for the mission. The volunteers were few, but their determination was unwavering. Among them was Captain Alex Carter, a veteran of many battles, and Dr. Elena Martinez, a brilliant scientist who had uncovered the flaw in the weapon. Together, they would lead the team that would infiltrate the Empire's fleet. The plan was simple in theory, but nearly impossible in execution. They would board an old human warship, now modified with the Empire's stolen technology, and use it to get close to the heart of the Empire's forces. The ship would be equipped with a special device that could exploit the flaw in the superweapon systems, rendering it useless. But they had no way of knowing how much time they had before the Empire decided to launch the weapon. They had to move fast. The journey was treacherous. As the human ship approached the Empire's fleet, Captain Carter and his crew knew they had only one shot at this. The Empire's ships were massive and heavily armed, making it nearly impossible to get close without being detected. But the humans had a plan. They would use the asteroid belt as cover, slipping through the debris field to avoid detection. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was their only hope. As they moved deeper into the asteroid belt, tension hung thick in the air. The crew was silent, knowing that every decision they made could be the difference between success and failure. Dr. Martinez, standing at a control panel, monitored the ship's sensors, watching for any sign of the Empire's patrols. She had spent months studying the Empire's technology, and now it was her turn to use her knowledge to save the planet. "We're almost there," Captain Carter said, his voice steady but laced with determination. "Stay focused. We can't afford to make any mistakes." The ship crept closer to the heart of the Empire's fleet. The larger ships were spread out in formation, their weapons aimed at Earth's defenses. But among them was a smaller, less visible vessel that the humans had spotted on their scans. It was a key component of the Empire's operations, and it was where the superweapon was being kept. It was their target. As they closed in on the enemy ship, the crew held their breath. A single mistake could expose them. But just as they neared the superweapon's location, a warning light flashed on Dr. Martinez's screen. The Empire had detected something. They were being tracked. "We've been spotted," she exclaimed, her voice filled with urgency. Captain Carter's mind raced. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Get us closer to that ship. We don't have much time." The humans were ready to face whatever came next. They had made it this far, and they couldn't afford to back down now. As the enemy ships moved to surround them, Captain Carter gave the order. "All hands, brace for impact." The small human ship weaved through the enemy fleet, narrowly dodging blasts from the Empire's weapons. The Empire's ships were huge, but they were slow to react, allowing the humans to slip between them and head toward the superweapons vessel. But even as they approached, the humans knew that they couldn't keep up the escape for long. They had to act quickly. "We're almost there," Dr. Martinez said, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Once we're inside the superweapons core, I can disable it." Captain Carter nodded. "Prepare to board the enemy ship. It's now or never." With a final burst of speed, the human ship latched onto the Empire's vessel, a docking maneuver that sent a wave of tension through the crew. They had made it inside the heart of the enemy's defenses. Now they had only minutes to disable the superweapon before the Empire realized what had happened. Captain Carter led the way, his team following closely behind as they infiltrated the Empire's ship. Their mission was clear: find the core of the superweapon and destroy it. But as they moved deeper into the ship, they encountered fierce resistance. The Empire's soldiers were well-trained and heavily armed, but the humans were determined. Every inch of ground they gained felt like a victory. As they approached the superweapons control room, Dr. Martinez worked quickly to analyze the systems. She connected her device to the weapons core and began to work her magic. Time was running out. The Empire's forces would be onto them soon. "This is it," Dr. Martinez said, her voice tense. "I'm in." Just as she activated the device, alarms blared across the ship. The Empire knew they were there. The countdown had begun. But for the first time since the war began, humanity had the advantage. The clock was ticking, and the tension inside the Empire's ship was palpable. The small human team, led by Captain Carter and Dr. Martinez, had infiltrated the enemy's vessel, but they weren't safe yet. Time was running out, and every second brought them closer to discovery. The alarms blared louder, echoing through the cold, metallic corridors of the Empire's superweapon ship. Captain Carter's hand gripped the hilt of his blaster as he moved cautiously through the dimly lit halls, his heart pounding. The mission was simple: disable the superweapon before it could be launched. But the path to success was anything but straightforward. They had been expecting some resistance, but nothing could prepare them for what they faced now. The Empire was not just a technologically superior force, it was a ruthless one. The soldiers they encountered were well-trained and willing to fight to the death. They would stop at nothing to ensure that the weapon was protected. But the humans weren't backing down. As the team approached the control room, where the super weapons core was located, Dr. Martinez's voice crackled through the comms. "We're almost there. Just a little further. The core should be in the next chamber." Captain Carter nodded. "Stay focused, everyone. We can't let up now." But they weren't alone anymore. The Empire had already mobilized its forces to hunt them down. The team had expected this, but they hadn't anticipated the number of soldiers they'd encounter in such a short time. The Empire's soldiers appeared from every corner, their weapons aimed directly at the humans. "Take cover," shouted Carter as he ducked behind a nearby pillar. The humans fired back, their blasters sending bright streaks of energy into the Empire's soldiers. The sound of gunfire echoed through the halls. But the humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something greater. They were fighting for Earth. Dr. Martinez, though, wasn't concerned with the battle raging around her. She had one goal in mind. "I'm in," she shouted, connecting her device to the super weapons core. "I'm starting the shutdown sequence now." The countdown began. On the monitor, numbers began to flash, counting down the minutes until the weapon would be activated. 5 minutes, Dr. Martins muttered, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Just 5 minutes to go. But the Empire wasn't about to let them succeed that easily. More soldiers poured into the room, firing relentlessly. Captain Carter and his team continued to hold them off, but the battle was getting fierce. It was clear that they couldn't maintain their position for long. "Captain, we need to finish this quickly," Dr. Martinez urged, sweat trickling down her forehead as she worked furiously to disable the superweapon. "The core is more complicated than I thought. I'll need another minute to fully shut it down." "Do what you need to do," Carter said, his voice firm. "We'll cover you." With every minute that passed, the humans knew they were getting closer to victory or defeat. The Empire's forces were relentless, but the humans fought with everything they had. They couldn't afford to fail. Not now. Not when the fate of their world hung in the balance. As the countdown on the screen showed 2 minutes remaining, the Empire's soldiers launched a final assault. The humans fired back, taking down several soldiers, but more kept coming. It was clear that the Empire would do everything in its power to stop them. "Come on, Dr. Martinez," Captain Carter muttered under his breath. "We're almost there." The sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Carter turned just in time to see 2 Empire soldiers charging toward them, their blasters raised. Without hesitation, he fired, taking them down in quick succession. The soldiers' bodies crumpled to the floor, but the humans knew the fight wasn't over. Dr. Martinez's voice rang out again. "I'm almost there. Just a few more seconds." 30 seconds, she shouted, her eyes locked on the countdown timer. "The weapon will activate in 30 seconds if we don't stop it." Captain Carter's heart raced. Every second felt like an eternity. He knew the Empire would be relentless, but he couldn't afford to focus on anything else. They had to stop the weapon. In the chaos, the humans continued to fight off wave after wave of enemy soldiers, but it was clear they couldn't hold out forever. Carter glanced at the timer, then back at Dr. Martinez. She was so close to finishing. 15 seconds, Dr. Martinez muttered, her voice trembling with urgency. "I just need—" A loud crash interrupted her words. One of the Empire's soldiers had thrown an explosive device into the control room. It landed just a few feet away from the humans, and within seconds, it exploded. The force of the blast knocked everyone off their feet. Carter was dazed but managed to scramble to his feet, barely able to focus. The timer was still counting down. "No," Carter shouted, looking over at Dr. Martinez. "Is it working?" Can we still stop it? Dr. Martinez was on the ground, but she managed to press a final button on her device. The countdown stopped. 0. Dr. Martinez whispered, her voice filled with disbelief and relief. It's disabled. The superweapon had been stopped. The Empire's most powerful weapon was no longer a threat to Earth. The humans had won, but not without cost. They had fought with everything they had. And as Captain Carter and his team stood in the control room, the sounds of battle still echoing through the ship, they knew that this victory was just one part of a much larger war. The superweapon had been disabled. The countdown had stopped. The threat that had hung over Earth like a shadow was no longer looming. For the first time in what felt like forever, the humans could breathe a little easier. But the battle was far from over. Inside the Empire's ship, Captain Carter and his team stood in the control room, their breaths heavy from the fight. They had done it. They had stopped the superweapon. But they knew that this was just one victory in a much bigger war. The Empire would not give up easily. Is it over? Dr. Martinez asked, her voice still shaky from the intensity of the moment. Her hands trembled as she wiped sweat from her brow. Carter looked around at his team. Not yet. The Empire still has its forces, and they'll come for us. But this is a big blow to their plans. The alarms in the ship had stopped blaring, but the humans knew that silence was not a sign of safety. The Empire would soon realize what had happened. They would come after them with everything they had. But for now, the mission was complete. Earth had been saved from the superweapon. Captain Carter turned to Dr. Martinez. Can you shut down the rest of their systems? We can't leave until we're sure they can't reactivate the weapon. Dr. Martinez nodded, walking over to a nearby control panel. I'll make sure the weapon can't be used again. It'll take a few more minutes. As Dr. Martinez worked, Captain Carter and his team took up defensive positions, ready for whatever might come next. The Empire would be furious. They had just lost their greatest weapon, and they wouldn't take it lightly. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The entire world knew that humanity had just struck a major blow against the Galactic Empire. People celebrated in the streets, but they knew that the war was not over. Earth's forces had to stay vigilant. The Empire would retaliate. On the Empire's flagship, Admiral Morthak stood in the command center, staring out into space. His once confident demeanor had cracked. The humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed the superweapon. But Morthak wasn't one to give up easily. He knew that the loss of the superweapon was a major setback, but the Empire still had resources, soldiers, and ships. They would regroup, and they would try again. Prepare for full retreat. Morthak ordered his officers. We'll fall back to our secondary base. The humans may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The Empire's fleet began to withdraw, their ships retreating into the dark expanse of space. The humans had struck a powerful blow, but the Empire was still a formidable force. They had the numbers, the technology, and the will to fight. The humans knew that they couldn't rest just yet. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the war effort had entered a new phase. With the superweapon disabled, the humans were now on the offensive. They had gained crucial momentum, and they intended to use it. The unified Earth forces, once disjointed and disorganized, had become a well-oiled machine. They had learned from the Empire's tactics, and now they were using that knowledge to fight back. The space fleets of Earth were mobilizing. New ships, constructed with the help of the Empire's own technology, were being launched into space. They were still outnumbered, but their forces were growing. The tide was shifting. At the same time, Earth's ground forces were also gaining strength. The Empire had once thought Earth to be a simple target, a world to conquer and plunder. But now, they saw a different reality. The humans were no longer the helpless species they had assumed them to be. They were a united, resourceful, and determined force. The Empire was no longer sure of victory. Back aboard the Empire's retreating ships, Admiral Morthak clenched his fists. "The humans are not like anything we've faced before," he muttered under his breath. "But they will fall, like all the others." He had underestimated humanity once, but he wouldn't make the same mistake again. The Empire would return, stronger and more prepared than ever. But now, Morthek knew that the war would not be an easy one. As the humans celebrated their victory, they knew that the fight was far from over. They had won an important battle, but the war was still raging. The Empire would come back, and Earth's forces would need to be ready. In the days that followed, humanity's resolve grew stronger. The victory over the superweapon had shown them that they could stand up to the most powerful force in the galaxy. And now, they were more determined than ever to defend their world. Captain Carter and his team were hailed as heroes, but they knew that the true victory would come when the Empire was finally defeated. The humans had warned the Empire to run. They had shown the galaxy that Earth would not be conquered. The war had just begun.